Hello, hello. This is Eric with the Paperback Warrior blog, podcast, YouTube channel. As you can see here, I've got Bryan from Bad Taste Books. We did a video not too long ago, I guess, it was earlier this year, on an installment of the Butcher series. And we did that with Nick from the Book Graveyard. But I wanted to have Bryan come on because, Bryan, you're like one of the only people out there that still will review young adult horror novels, suspense novels, fantasy, and that's kind of like some of the things that I like about your videos is you still cover some of that stuff like Goosebumps and things. So yeah, so tell people that aren't familiar with your channel what you're all about.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know that I'm the only one. There's certainly people out there, but yeah, I maybe in this area I'm certainly more into it than others. Yeah, my channel is Bad Taste Books. I just like to chat about whatever I want to read. There's not really any sort of focused in thing. I'd like to talk about horror and sci-fi, fantasy, crime, men's adventure, and yeah, kind of 90s young adult and middle grade books as well. Kind of more of a nostalgia thing for me.
Yeah,
because that's kind of what got me into reading is like Goosebumps. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. I remember you talking about like Animorphs, which I'm not familiar with, but Animorphs, Goosebumps, things like that on your channel, which I thought was cool. But I mentioned on my podcast because I mentioned that we were going to do the show, and I was like, he just reads everything. Like you really do. You read everything. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, I've joked before that maybe my channel would have more followers if I honed it in a little bit, but I like to read what I like to read, and I like to talk about whatever I read. So
yeah,
people want to join in, and buy, great.
Yeah, I love that. So I think it's really cool. Before we get into what we're going to talk about today with these two books, which you can see over my shoulder, we're going to talk about these two 90s young adult. Yeah, there you go. You got the real deal.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about these books, but before we get into that, I wanted to ask you. You went to Pulpfest last month, which is, I described it to somebody as like the San Diego Comic Con for pulp readers, I guess, and vintage paperback collectors and things. That was your first time. What did you think about it?
It was, yeah. I had a great time. There were some really interesting panels and discussions, and they had movie screenings of the old King Kong, and but the vendor room was really a lot of fun. Just it's like being in an old museum, looking through all these, pieces of literary history, and I think the most fun though was just meeting up with all the friends I've made on BookTube and hanging out, and yeah, it was a great time. Have you been before?
I've never been. No. Okay, I want to go.
We need to get you up there for sure.
I'm adjusting my headset. Sorry, it's
No,
good static on. Yeah, I want to go, and I know that you guys went with Nick and Secret Fire Books, Tim from Secret Fire, and Pulp Mortem and things like that. So I really wanted to join you guys, but I just couldn't make it work.
Yeah, no, it's a ways up there for us for sure, but it was worth it. I'd like to go again next year. It was fun.
Did you buy a lot of books?
I was good. I mean, I bought a lot of books, but not as much as the other guys, I don't think.
Yeah, they really cleaned up.
They bring hundreds of dollars and just go to town. I was like, well,
right, keep it in check a little bit. Yeah, that would
exactly.
Back in the day, that would have been me. I would have showed up with hundreds of dollars and just went crazy. But
yeah, I've kind of filled my allotted space, so I need to rein it in a little.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we're going to talk about these two books. Back in the 90s, there were a ton of young adult horror type of paperbacks. I don't know if they were really horror, but they were marketed that way. Yeah. They had that cover art, vivid cover art, and they were put out by publishers like Scholastic, and they had, I think the imprint was Point Horror, and then you had Avon, which had Avon Flair, which is what we're talking about today. But there were a bunch of, I remember, I'm ancient, but I remember middle school was around 1990, and then high school I think was 91. But I remember buying those books at the school fair, and when they would have them, and I think they were like, I don't know, $2 or $3 to get some of them. Or did they still have those books when you were in school?
Yeah. So I was in the heat of like Goosebumps and stuff, and Animorphs and all those more middle grade ones when I was at the Scholastic Book Fair. And I do remember seeing like the Fear Street books and sort of the older teen books around. But I think those were like a little before me, and I didn't really get into them until I was an adult. I kind of went straight from Goosebumps to Stephen King. So
Yeah.
this is sort of me going back and reading these for the first time. So
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, and I think that's probably the thing with a lot of people is they started out with this kind of juvenile horror, and I think the previous generations to us probably started out with like Alfred Hitchcock, Three Investigator books and Hardy Boys and things like that, and then kind of progressed forward. So
yeah,
I think that's kind of the case. But I had stumbled upon this author. Her name is Kathryn Johnson, but she writes as Nicole Davidson. She wrote, I think, 10 books under this Avon Flair imprint, and this was from 91 through 96. Books like The Stalker, Fan Mail, Demon's Beach, which I really want. That's got a cool cover. This looks
yeah.
awesome. And then Winter Kill, which I read earlier this year, and I really liked it. And so that's kind of how I found out about her. But she also wrote a 3-book series about I think she's like 16 years old. It's like this girl on like this really long cruise. That's called the Final Cruise series. There were
Okay.
3 books published in 95. But did you read anything by her prior to these 2 books?
No, I have not. So I have these two, Crash Course and Crash Landing, and I have Winter Kill that you read, and I have, I think, The Surprise Party. It's
Okay.
just ones that I've picked up here and there, but no, these were the first of hers I've ever read. So
Cool. Well, just a quick background on her. She wrote romance novels as well for Harlequin. She wrote thrillers, suspense books, young adult books. She also worked as a hospital switchboard operator, store clerk. I think I wrote down here she had a bank teller job at one point, and she taught school in elementary, an elementary school teacher. But get this though, I don't know if you knew this. She runs a writing and editing business now, and you can find her online. I think it's just KathrynJohnson.com. But
okay,
get this, Brian. You can pay her up to $7,000 to ghostwrite your book, or there's like a tiered platform where she'll like edit your book and she'll talk to you about your plot and how to like work things out within your narrative.
whoa!
But it goes all the way up to 7 grand for her to ghostwrite your book.
I wonder how
And
many books of hers are out there secretly. Then,
yeah, it makes me wonder.
yeah, I would love to find
um,
that out.
yeah, and I just wonder like what the contract would be like. Like, does she get residuals? Does she get royalties off sales, or does she
Right.
just get like the flat fee of 7 grand and that's it? I don't really know. I don't know, but she seems very passionate about her industry. She speaks at writers' conferences. She talks at libraries, schools. So there you have it. Yeah, 7 grand will get you to write your book for you.
Very cool.
Uh,
Yeah, I didn't know.
yeah, it's crazy.
I don't know
But
that I
she,
would feel accomplished if I had a book with my name on it, though, and I knew I didn't
yeah,
do anything.
right. Yeah, I don't know what the point is, but I guess that there it is. But she wrote this series here, this 2-book series under Nicole Davidson's name. As you mentioned earlier, is Crash Course from 95, Crash Landing from 96. And I think they're right at 190 pages, somewhere around there. But
Mhm.
just looking at the covers and then without looking at the back cover, like just looking at the front covers, I thought these were alien invasion books.
I did too, just because of the name. And yeah, I don't even think I read the back when you, because you sent me a whole list and you were like,
Yeah.
here's a bunch of stuff I have. What do you want to read? And I'd always wanted to read these just because I love these blue
Yeah.
covers. And same with Winter Kill, it's got a similar design.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the Crash Course, Crash Landing. I thought of like a
Right.
UFO landing, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, and I thought they were alien abduction books. They're not. A
No,
newsflash, they're not alien abduction books.
they're not.
But and I was a little bit disappointed when I found out that they weren't, because
I was too.
and it I mean, you've got to think 95, 96 would have been the peak of probably X-Files at the
Yeah,
time, the alien abduction craze. I think
yeah.
you had a couple of movies, and then you had Dark Skies come out on NBC and X-Files. So maybe it was a marketing ploy. just
Sure. I mean,
just maybe.
yeah. And I think alien related horror is some of my favorites. So I was maybe we
Yeah.
were both fools for thinking that, but I was pretty excited.
Yeah, I was too. But yeah, we're going to talk about both of them. We're going to start with the first book, which is Crash Course. And at the very beginning of the book, the very beginning before the book actually starts, they give you that list of characters,
Oh
which
god.
is it's always daunting for me when I see that. There's a lot of the map back books from like the 50s, the 40s and 50s will have
Yeah.
like a huge list of characters. And as soon as I see that, I'm like, I'm out. Like I can't keep track of all these characters. I'm out. But you have just to give you an idea, you have Kelly, and she's the main character of both of these books. And it says here that she's there to boost her SAT scores, but she can't help being thrilled that Jeff has signed up as well. There you go. There's the big list.
Yeah.
It says Jeff's there just because he wants to be around Kelly. Bryan is there, Kelly's best friend. Uh, Paula, which is better is like the adversary sort of Kelly because she's dating Bryan. We'll get into all these characters, but there's Chris, who's a jock, Nathan, who's sort of the oddball, Isabel, she's Native American. She carries a knife with her, which is really interesting. And then there's Angel, who's really, really bizarre. She's
Goth chick.
goth. I was gonna say goth chick. Yep, yep. She dresses in black, speaks in really weird riddles and stuff. Um, so that's what you get at the very beginning of the book. The prologue, really interesting. The prologue kicks off with it's like a drowning. I mean, it's literally a drowning that happens in the prologue.
Mhm.
There's two people in a boat, and they're paddling to the middle of the lake. And we're told that one of the people in the boat is a 17-year-old boy who's attending Thomaston High School. And he's instructing the other person in the boat how to commit suicide by jumping out of the boat and letting the current pull them down. Really morbid stuff. And he explains that like nonchalantly that the water will fill up your lungs quick if you just kind of take it all in at one time, and then you'll quickly drown and die. And it was just crazy. But the other person that he's explaining this to starts to freak out and says, "Hey, I don't want to do this. I don't want to commit suicide. I don't want to die," which startles this boy, and he falls overboard and he ends up drowning. As the other person's screaming that they didn't mean to do it, like they didn't mean to cause the accident. So I didn't know what to think of this. What, what did you think about that whole drowning thing at the beginning?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just like, oh, taking it for what it was. I was like, okay, well, this is a very adult theme for a teen book,
Fair, right?
but sure, here we go. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't sure what was going on. I think it was probably around that point that I read the back, and I was like, wait a minute, what is this about?
Right. Yeah, it took me aback because I was like, this is very adult. Like,
Yeah,
like
and I
this is
think and I've only read a handful, but I think the Avon flares are kind of known for having a little more adult-ish content than some of
yeah,
the other teen, like the point thrillers or whatever.
yeah. I can totally see that now. Yeah, and we'll talk about some of the other adult themes, but in the first chapter, we get introduced to Kelly Peterson. She's the protagonist of the book and the sequel. She's this high school kid. She's in Thomaston High School. I think she might be a junior, maybe. I don't know. I think she's a junior.
That sounds right.
Yeah, she lives with her dad in Maryland. Her mother walked out on both of them. Apparently, he's out of the pic. Her mom's out of the picture. Kelly's best friend lives across the street. His name's Bryan, and Bryan's got a girlfriend. Her name's Paula. They're all part of this book. So Bryan, Paula, Kelly. There's animosity between Kelly and Paula, just over Bryan. Bryan, he's a good kid. He's going to go to the Air Force Academy. He comes from a military background. But Kelly gets this letter in the mail, and it's it's telling her that she's going to have to go on her Thanksgiving break to do an SAT prep with one of the teachers named Mr. Porter. And it's so bizarre. They're doing it in the middle of nowhere at this place called Deep Creek Lake, which is like in rural Maryland in the middle of nowhere. And they're going to take this crash course on the SATs. And Bryan is going, and Paula is going, and now Kelly knows that she's going. and she doesn't want to go. But what an odd place to do an SAT prep in the middle of nowhere. And I don't think there's any electricity there either. It's just
Yeah, and there's not really much explanation as to why they're going there instead of like,
right,
a classroom in the school or something.
right. No explanation. And I can't figure out if it's like 2 nights that they're there or 3 nights or 4 nights. I couldn't really make heads or tails of it.
Yeah.
But it's literally
It's
over
it's like a
Thanksgiving
long
break.
weekend or something is the vibe I got, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
strange.
And we're introduced to Mr. Porter later, and he seems kind of like he's got things going on behind
Yeah.
the scenes that he has plans for.
100% that's who they were trying to make you think it was. Yeah.
Yes.
You're like,
Mr.
this is the
Porter.
bad guy right away.
Yeah, Mr. Porter's a bad guy. But in this first chapter, we're also introduced to Jeff, and he's the rich kid. He's driving a white Corvette. He's got aspirations to attend Harvard, and he's just trying to boost up his SAT score a little bit higher. And his whole family, I think, went to Harvard, so he's like the rich kid, Ivy League, and Mr. Porter tells him, "Hey, you've got to get your SAT scores up if you really want to get into Harvard." And then, as we mentioned earlier, Kelly has a crush on Jeff. Jeff has a crush on Kelly, but they just don't know it. They don't like express their feelings, so they kind of keep it secret. There's also an introduction to another character. His name is Nathan, and apparently he's rough around the edges. He rides a motorcycle. He's deathly afraid of this black athlete named Chris Baxter, and they make it really clear here that Nathan is very poor, Jeff is really rich, so it's a complete clash of lifestyles. But that's the next characters that get they're introduced. I thought it was kind of weird. I mean, I don't know. It's Chris is. I have to realize that's the time period. I mean, this is the 90s, and it's just a different time period. But they make it out as almost like exploitation of Chris being the black athlete and being a bully and being on drugs and whatever. It's just
it
was bad.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
It was not great. Not great at all. So there you have Kelly, Jeff, Paula, Nathan, Bryan, and then Chris is again the athlete. He's going to this SAT prep school prep thing because he wants to get his scores up a little bit higher because he wants to go to a bigger college. He knows he's going to get recruited on a scholarship to play football, but he wants to go to a bigger school so he has a bigger chance of getting into the NFL. He doesn't want to go play at a small school. So that's the whole reason why he's going. And then the next day they all meet up at the bus departure, where they end up meeting Isabel, who's, again, this is the time frame, but it's really bad. But they call her Hawaiian, or they think that she's Asian because she has darker skin, but she's actually a Navajo. She's Native American. She's part of the Navajo tribe. She tells Mr. Porter this odd thing. She says to him, she tells him that he's a sensitive soul who only wants the best for his students and won't punish them for taking his course. Weird thing to say. There's also this other girl. Her name's Angel. And like we mentioned earlier, she's the goth chick. She just is weird. Like, she just acts weird all the time. Mr. Porter tells her on the bus that she can't have food on it, so she crushes this peach and then swallows the whole thing, including the seed.
If anyone has heard all of this and is thinking, well, that's too many characters, you're correct.
Right. There's a lot of characters. And
I actually struggled in this book to keep up with them, and I had to keep going back to that first page, which I hate. Yes. I don't want to have to go. I want to want to have to do that.
Right. Yeah. Well, the problem is there isn't enough character development in 200 pages to take care of all these characters.
No.
And they're all, for the most part, you have a Breakfast Club stereotypical assortment of people. I kept thinking of the Breakfast Club when I was reading this. Because you just have all these different characters, but it's easy to write like that. I mean, it's easy to write that stuff. And you just have like these little boxes that you have the character in, and it's just easy. But anyway, they leave on the bus and they drive out into the middle of nowhere, and we're told that Deep Creek Lake is miles from civilization. It's miles from the nearest doctor. There's no electricity. It's cold. Obviously, it's over Thanksgiving. It's in Maryland. They arrive at the cabin. Uh, Angel reveals that she's got this skull necklace, and she talks to this necklace. And then Isabel pulls out this huge knife that she's got, and she has this ring that's been handed down to her from her family. So then you're like, okay, Angel's talking to a necklace. Isabel's got a huge knife. And then it's revealed that Chris is a huge bully and that he may have roid rage. So you're like, okay, well, obviously there's going to be some killing happening, and one of these is suspect along with Mr. Porter. So I think the author did a pretty good job of just giving us a lot of different suspects, even though we don't even have a murder yet. We're thinking there's going to have to be a murder. I don't know. And then Nathan, he's got love for chocolate, and he pulls out a load of condoms that he's brought with him.
Yeah.
I don't know. So what did you think about these characters, like Angel with her necklace and Isabel with the knife? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell that the author was trying to get us to kind of question every single person. And I thought she did, like you said, I thought she did a decent job with that. I mean, some of the characters were more forgettable to me than others, and I had, like I said, I had to keep referencing back. But I liked the goth girl and the Navajo, and I mean, there were a couple that were pretty discernible, and that I was like, "Ooh, what's going on with her or whatever." But I think for the most part, I found them pretty two-dimensional.
Yes,
but yeah,
most definitely. There's a legend of this lake. Supposedly there was a tribe of Native Americans there that I think they were called like the Susquehanna tribe. They lived on the river in this part of the country, and they ended up getting massacred by white colonists. But there's these two lovers that were off, doing the nasty, and they don't get killed. They come back to the village and find that like everyone's been slaughtered. And so the two of them, they paddle out to the middle of the lake, and there's supposedly like a spirit god out in the lake that will, if you look into the water, the spirit god will be able to show you your soul in the reflection. So when they paddle out, they see that they don't have a reflection in the water, and they don't see their soul in the water, supposedly. So they take it that maybe they should have died in the massacre. So they end up drowning in the lake. And supposedly the lake is now haunted, I guess, by these two lovers. Or if you go out to the lake, you can see these two lovers kind of floating in the water. So that's the I guess the mythology that the author built in, that this place may be haunted.
Yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't convincing. It wasn't very convincing to me, but I thought it was.
Yeah, but then I did keep thinking like, well, maybe this is going to be more of a supernatural thriller.
Yes.
But no.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing with the things that happened in the prologue.
Yeah.
And them thinking about wanting to commit suicide, and they were obviously, I guess, maybe romantically involved. I'm not sure, but that night when they arrive, they go out later that night and they have a campfire, and there's a buddy system in the narrative. There's a buddy system set up where if anybody has to go to the outhouse, because they just have indoor plumbing, so if you go to the outhouse, you got to take a buddy with you. And so they go out, and I think Angel or somebody says she has to go out to the bathroom. She takes Paula with her, and then they end up disappearing. They just disappear.
And I think we also should say that Mr. Porter established at some point that there are a bunch of holes in the earth, scattered throughout the woods.
It's supposedly, I don't know why, but the government or something has come in and tried to fill in these holes so people don't get hurt, but they don't fill in all of them. So if you're out walking around, there's a possibility you could break your leg or ankle.
Yeah.
Which does play a part in the book later.
Yeah.
So a good thing you mentioned that, but I don't know. They end up, Paula and Angel, they end up disappearing. So then that leaves a lot of people to sit around and talk about Bryan's future at the Air Force Academy. Paula and Angel, they don't come back for whatever reason. So Kelly and Jeff go out searching for them. And then that leaves Isabel and Bryan, who then later go out to look for them. And then that leaves Nathan and Chris behind, who hate each other. Nathan and Chris don't get along. They hate each other. Nathan's fearful of Chris, and Chris has apparently got some stuff going on. And then we get a lot of this kind of thing, though, throughout the whole book. there are people leaving the cabin or leaving the campfire, and they go wandering in the woods, and then another character has to go look for them, and then they don't come back, so another character goes and looks for them. So at some point I was thinking, yeah, there's
not a lot of drive to the plot. It's just kind of like you're just watching all these, and yeah, I don't know. I found myself confused and bored, and for a lot of it.
For a lot of it, yeah. So kind of fast forwarding a little bit, Angel, she makes animal noises when she's sleeping, which I don't know why. I don't know what the point of that is. Again, you've got Nathan and Chris kind of bickering back and forth. The animosity between Kelly and Paula is pretty thick. But Kelly, that night, she wakes up because she hears a scream outside. So she ends up running out of the cabin, and she bumps into Jeff. And Jeff's been out running all night. He's all sweaty, clammy, and so you're like, well, why is Jeff out? Like, what's he out doing? So then Isabel comes outside, and she notices that both Paula and Bryan are missing. And so everyone goes out looking for the two of them. And Kelly starts asking Paula, she starts screaming at Paula, asking, where's Bryan? And she happens to look out, and she sees this rowboat in the middle of the lake. And Paula tells them that Bryan was in the boat with a stranger. So Kelly flips out and strips off her jeans, and she dives into the lake, and she swims out to the boat. While Mr. Porter, being the responsible adult, doesn't do anything, and he keeps the other kids from diving into the lake and going to look as well. He holds everybody back. And so Kelly is like the lone diver here. So she's out diving looking for Bryan. He's nowhere to be found. So the question is, where's Bryan, and who is the other person in the boat? Because it kind of ties into the prologue now. Like, who was the other person? And now we know that it obviously wasn't Paula, because Paula says that she saw another person with Bryan in the boat. So that's the question. So I was like, okay, well then the book must be a slasher, because now Bryan is the first person that's been killed off by whoever was in the boat. There's a mysterious stranger. There's got to be a slasher. That's kind of what I was thinking, right?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, okay.
But it's just a generic mystery.
It's very generic.
Yeah.
Back in the cabin, everyone's paranoid now, and Kelly gets Paula to confess that it was the two of them in the boat together, and they were taking a romantic boat ride in the moonlight. But Paula says that was the plan, but Bryan left without her and just did something on his own in the boat with another person. So Kelly, she's kind of like thinking Paula's a suspect, but then she smells Jeff. I don't know why she smells Jeff, but she smells Jeff, and she can smell lake water on him.
Yeah.
So she thinks Jeff is involved in the murder of Bryan, and we don't even know if Bryan's dead or not. That's the thing. Everyone just assumes he's dead. But the kids try to figure out what's happening. Kelly blames Paula for Bryan's disappearance. Everyone suspects everyone. It just becomes a mess. And this is about like maybe page 80 or something like that.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. We've only got another 100 pages to go. Paula wakes up. She somehow remembers that Bryan was at the bottom of the lake, and she sneaks out. We're not sure where she's going. There's more squabbling between the kids, more bickering. Kelly's now like, Jeff is the killer. Like, she thinks Jeff is the one that murdered Bryan, and he's the one that's involved. It's just a mess. It's an absolute mess.
Mr. Porter just dips out.
He just leaves. Yeah, Mr. Porter says that the only obvious thing to do here is to go get help. Yeah. And something we didn't say, though, is the bus that dropped them off won't come back for like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And there's no phone, there's nothing. This is before cell phones. So Mr. Porter says he's going to have to walk on foot for about 4 hours to get to help.
Yeah.
This is going to be really important to talk about when we get to the second book. But he says he's got 4 hours to get to civilization. Kelly, while he's gone, interrogates Angel more. She tells Kelly that she saw Bryan being shoved by another person in the boat, and that he went over the side of the boat into the water. Then the other person jumped in to try to save Bryan, but Angel couldn't tell if the other person was trying to help Bryan or try to push him down even further. So they weren't really sure. kind of fast forwarding a little bit here to Nathan. So everyone's out and about doing God knows what. And then Nathan goes back to the cabin by himself. And he's kind of like right outside of the cabin. And someone that we don't know, it isn't revealed to us, walks up to Nathan and tells him that they would have let him live if he would have just kept his damn mouth shut.
Yeah.
And Nathan thinks that Chris is the one that killed Bryan. So whoever this person is stabs Nathan with Isabel's giant knife.
I was like, something happened.
Yes. So Nathan has been stabbed and left to die outside the cabin. So now we got possibly 2 murders. So we possibly got Bryan being murdered, and then we now finally think Nathan's been stabbed.
Yeah.
And so Angel finds Jeff and Kelly, gets them back to the cabin where they realize that Nathan has now gone missing. And again, they all go searching for him. And eventually they find him still alive, like right outside of the cabin. Like this dude is laying outside of the cabin. Like, how did you miss him?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. But Isabel's knife is by Nathan's stabbed body. So they think that Isabel is the one that killed Nathan. Paula begins attacking Isabel and calls her, quote, an Indian American girl, and then calls her an Indian slut. And she's screaming that she just wanted Bryan all to herself. Then everyone kind of chills out. They begin doctoring Nathan. Mr. Porter, he's gone. Like, we don't know where he's at. He's gone. So we get to the end.
They want you to suspect that it's him for a while too,
right?
Because he's gone.
Yeah, because he's gone. And some of the weird things that he said in the narrative. That he's just a weird dude.
Yeah.
So he's a weird dude. So we finally get to the end of this book. Kelly is now, she's saying, hey, I'm going to solve Bryan's disappearance. So she gets a tape recorder, and she gets Isabel's knife, and she goes into the woods. And she goes for the boat, and she begins to put it in the water, and she's going to row. I don't know where she's going to row her boat, but she's going to. And it's not really clear what her mission was, but she ends up seeing Paula, and she ends up getting back out of the boat. She goes to the shoreline, and she starts accusing Paula of killing Bryan. And she at this point, she says Paula's probably tried to kill Nathan, and has probably killed Mr. Porter. And Paula says, no. She finally confesses that she couldn't live with Bryan going off to the Air Force Academy and them being away at different schools. So the 2 of them decided that they were going to commit suicide together. And it was when they got out into the boat and out in the lake that Paula realized that she didn't want to go through with the suicide. And Bryan didn't want to either. So that's why he was telling her all these morbid details about sucking the water into your lungs so you can go down fast. He was basically just trying to talk Paula out of committing suicide. And Paula didn't want to commit suicide. And so anyway, Bryan got rattled, fell overboard. They put rocks in their pocket to drag them down further.
Yeah. They had to have been some heavy rocks for him to not be able to swim up.
Heavy rocks in his pocket. It makes no sense, but
no, it doesn't.
Paula freaked out. She said the water was really, really cold, and she basically just let him drown. And she says all this to Kelly, and Kelly records it on the tape recorder. Paula then attacks Kelly, bashes her in the head with this huge rock. And then Kelly blacks out, but she's saved by Angel, who just happened to follow them to the lake. And Angel runs away, gets help. Jeff arrives on the scene. So between Jeff and Angel, they run and protect Kelly from being drowned by Paula. She's dragging Kelly out to the water to basically drown her. And then everyone's saved by, Kelly's saved. They now know Paula was involved. There really wasn't a murder.
No.
I mean, Bryan just fell overboard.
Nathan's okay. So yeah.
Nathan's okay. Paula was just kind of going berserk there for a minute. But tell us what happened to Mr. Porter.
He was just lost in the woods somewhere. Just an idiot.
Yeah, he just got lost, and then he ended up falling in one of those holes, and he broke his leg.
Yep.
But at the end of the book, we learned that Nathan is doing good. He's in the hospital. He's now dating Angel.
Mm-hmm.
Chris and Isabel might be a thing. Jeff and Kelly is a thing. They're together.
Paul is in the insane asylum.
Paula's gone into the insane asylum, and we get a Breakfast Club ending.
Yeah.
All these people that probably weren't going to get along are now getting along just fine, and they walk off. So my question for you is, going back to what we originally talked about, would you be happy if you had paid $7,000 to Kathryn Johnson to write this book for you?
No.
No, I don't think so. No.
Not worth it.
No. So some of the things that I liked about the book, I liked the guessing of who's the killer kind of thing. I did like that. I enjoyed the mystery of what happened to Bryan. I did find that was a pretty gripping part of the narrative, trying to circle back to the prologue and what really happened. That part was all good. I wish, morbidly, I wish that there had been more deaths or more attacks or something to break up the monotony of them just disputing stuff and bickering back and forth. But that didn't really pan out. So there's the things I did like. The things I didn't like are the things that we touched on already. It's just there's a lot of bickering, there's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of dialogue in this book, and it seemed like the author had a decent idea, but just didn't know how to really bring that into 180 pages of length. There's just no way to pad this out any more than what she already did. But
yeah, I mean, like you said, it's just a bit of a mess. Like, it's very convoluted. If you hadn't clearly taken notes on the breakdown of the plot, I don't think I could have run it through for you in a very cohesive manner. I would have been like, there's some kids and they kind of run around a lot. And then I understand the general, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in between where you're just like, what is going on? A lot of filler, like you said. So
there was back in the day, I used to rent all these slasher movies back in the day. That's back when we had video stores. And it was at I think the peak of the slasher genre was probably early 80s, mid 80s. And there was a slasher movie that came out, I think it was on Paramount, which did Friday the 13th, called April Fool's Day. I think it came out in 86.
Yeah, I've seen
and I was like, man, this is going to be an amazing movie. Like, this is going to be awesome. Like, you got Halloween, you had New Year's Day or New Year's Evil, you had Graduation Day or whatever. You had all these like celebrated days. I was like, okay, cool. April Fool's Day, it's gonna be awesome. But it sucked. It wasn't a very good movie, and the kills weren't good. There just wasn't anything there. That's how I kind of felt at the end of this book. It's like, this should have been much better.
Yeah.
But and then I would ask you at this point if you would read another Kathryn Johnson book based on this one, but you chose that you would read another book because you wanted to read the sequel.
We did, yeah. I'm a completionist, and so originally we were going to do both of them, and then I kind of got busy, and we were like, oh well, let's just do one. And at the last second, I'm like, let's read the other one,
right? Just
because I was like, I have it, I'm going to want to read it at some point. Why not? And without spoiling, I'm glad we did.
I am too. Yeah, I'm glad we have these two books done and off of our list, and we can move on to something else. So yeah, quickly, let's move on to Crash Landing. Published in 1996, again by Avon under their Avon Flair imprint. Obviously, same author. Similar cover, like you mentioned earlier, the blue overtones. I do like this cover better than the other one. It's got kind of like a frosty feel to it. Almost kind of like a fantasy little element there with that little cottage and the way the trees look. But and the thing I really don't understand is why this author wanted to write a sequel. I don't know why. There was nothing that warranted a sequel.
It's just to trick people like me and you into reading another of her books.
I guess so. So here's the thing that doesn't make any sense. So as we mentioned earlier, Mr. Porter said he had to walk about 4 hours to get help in the last book. In this book, Deep Creek Lake is a ski resort. So there's ski patrols, there's snowmobiles, there are people skiing. And
I've imagined it as like there's the lake and then there's a mountain, and maybe at the top of the mountain is the ski resort.
Maybe,
but I don't know. But Your point is, whether that's true or not, there should be something closer than 4 hours.
You would think so.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it doesn't make any sense. But Deep Creek Lake is now a ski resort in this book, and it's I think it's March, and it's still cold, and it's the same characters. The book begins with Kelly. She's reliving the events that occurred the previous year at the lake. Kelly is part of Thomas and High's ski club, and Jeff is there with her. They've returned to the lake for this ski outing,
which is already the most unbelievable part of this book.
Right.
Hey, do you want to go skiing at the place where your best friend died and you were almost killed?
Yeah. Let's do that in the middle of nowhere. And so it's basically the same characters. You have Jeff there, who's Kelly's boyfriend. They're going to spend several days at these cabins skiing. We get a recap of the first book on page 4, which I guess would be helpful if you hadn't read the first book. We do learn that Paula was sent to a special psychiatric hospital for long-term treatment after stabbing Nathan. That's basically the only thing she could really, well, it's really the only thing she did, honestly.
Yeah.
She just stabbed Nathan. The ski outing is hosted by adult chaperones named Annette Riley. She's like a really good skier. Her husband, Frank was a good skier apparently at some point, but he's now paralyzed from the waist down due to
a skiing accident. And yet here he is at a ski resort.
Chaperoning young people on skis.
Yeah.
There's also Nathan and Angel and Isabel and Chris. So we've got all the same characters from the first book other than Paula, Bryan, and Mr. Porter so far. But there's a new kid. His name's Will. I don't know if he's part of the high school. I guess he is, but they don't know him. So he's just a kid named Will. The second chapter, we got the kids walking in to find Frank. Again, he's the one that's in the wheelchair. Frank is holding a knife on 2 kids. And apparently these kids named Troy and Jeremy snuck into the lodge. And the reason is because they were looking for Jeremy's snow goggles. And Frank kind of seems like a lunatic right now because he's got a knife on them and he's kind of asking them what their story is, but their story checks out. They said that they had misplaced the goggles and for some reason thought that the kids had taken them back there. Whatever.
Why they would be in someone else's cabin, I don't know.
I'll just go with it at this point. Kelly ends up hitting the slopes and she ends up crashing when she sees a girl that looks a lot like Paula. She then befriends Troy and the two start hanging out together, which makes Jeff very, very angry. And then we get a Beverly Hills 90210 plot here with the love triangle. Kelly and Troy spending a lot of time together and Jeff being very, very angry about it. Kelly and Troy, they later see this mysterious girl out on the lake putting down a memorial wreath in the spot where Bryan drowned. Who did you think this was?
I mean, I was pretty much like, well, it's Paula. I don't know that I had any sort of, I was like, yep.
It's got to be Paula, right? I mean, it has to be. Well, guess what? It is Paula. So Kelly learns that Paula, who walks up to her nonchalantly and says, "Hey, Kel, how you been?" And Kelly, who hates Paula, starts to realize that Paula is in mourning over Bryan's death, and she seems sincere. Paula explains that they let me out of the hospital. Like, everything's good. I rehabilitated. I'm good now. And they just let me out. So Paula's like, okay, well, let me buddy up with you. And Kelly's like, sure. So Kelly takes Paula back to the lodge and reintroduces Paula back to the group. And they're all like, are you high? Like, why are you bringing Paula into our group after everything that happened back?
Kelly seems to have a very sudden change of heart. She feels that Paula's being genuine, and she's like, well, let's just be nice to her because we both love Bryan. It's a little sudden how she suddenly.
Too sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. No. But so there's the other thing too. It doesn't make sense. Paula is now, she just moves into the lodge.
Yeah.
Like, and they're just fine with that. Like the chaperones are like, okay, well, now we have an adult that shouldn't be here, or a kid that shouldn't be here is now with us.
Yeah.
But Paula just moves in, and everyone just goes about their business. They're skiing, everybody's having fun. Paula, she returns back to the ski lodge. I think the next day or a couple days later, she returns to the ski lodge by herself, and she finds a gun in someone's suitcase. And she's like, "Why is?" I can't remember what she was looking for. I don't even know. I don't know if it really matters, but
Yeah, it doesn't.
she finds a gun in a suitcase. Then again, just like what happened with Nathan, someone walks in that we don't know and tells Paula that she blabs too much and that she's going to have to die.
Yeah.
So then the person stabs Paula and kills her. Like this time, someone actually dies. Paula is dead.
Which is rare in a teen thriller from the 90s.
It is. I thought, and we didn't talk about it, but in the first book, the adult overtones in that book, there was some cursing, there were some hints of sex. There was Nathan with a bunch of condoms,
steroid addiction.
Yeah, steroid addiction, suicide, and then with this book, you have someone actually getting killed. So Paula she's killed in a reversal of what she did with Nathan. She's stabbing Nathan, saying he's talking too much. Someone stabs Paula because she's talking too much and kills her. The kids return. They find Paula dead. They call the police. So then we get these two police officers, Margaret Shelbourne and Lawrence Baxter, and the two police start interviewing everyone about their whereabouts when Paula was murdered. Days later, this unknown skier enters the lodge, uses a payphone, calls the police, saying that no, he doesn't call the police. He's calling someone that we don't know. And he's talking about he can't get a shipment out now because the police are now active because of Paula's murder. And the person making this phone call confesses that they killed Paula. So whoever's making the phone call is the killer. The person on the other end of the line says to make sure the police keep on thinking that Kelly did it. So the two police officers come to question Kelly again. This time they find this threatening note in Kelly's backpack saying that Paula deserved to die. But Kelly didn't write it. Someone planted it there, but the police get Kelly into custody. So they take her into custody. They sort of arrest her in front of the kids and haul her out into the car. At this point, I'm like, I don't know where this is going. Like I don't know what we're doing here. I don't know.
Yeah, this one is just as convoluted as the first one, but maybe it's just because the characters were already established and I like the setting a little bit more. I'm not going to say I liked this book, but it was at least more cohesive and entertaining than the first one to me.
It is. And
it's not good, but
it's not good, but
no.
There's an interesting twist here when they get to the car. Which I thought was kind of cool. The police say, "Hey, Kelly, don't worry about this. Like, we know you didn't do it. We just wanted to show the group that we were arresting you because now the real killer will loosen up and possibly make a mistake and make themselves known." So they want Kelly to participate in the investigation by pretending she's been jailed by the police. But this means that she's going to have to spend a few days in jail. The police officer named Margaret, she promises Kelly's dad that she's going to call him like 3 or 4 times a day just to let him know that Kelly's perfectly okay in a concrete building surrounded by police officers in a jail cell, isolated. But she's going to make sure she calls 3 or 4 times a day to let them know that she's perfectly okay. And then it doesn't pan out, though, because the killer doesn't strike again. There's no progress made in the investigation. So the police let Kelly go, and that they promise that a police officer is going to have her back. And guess what? Kelly goes right back to the ski lodge, back to the place that 2 people have now died at.
Yeah, nothing about that makes sense.
And the ski outing that was supposed to be just, I guess, maybe 3 or 4 days is now turning into like 2 weeks that they're skiing. I mean, it just keeps going on and on.
Because I mean, don't they say at some point like you guys can't leave until we wrap this case up or something?
Maybe. Like
maybe
your punishment is, you just ski until we figure out who the killer is.
Yeah,
just keep on skiing.
Just keep on. Made a lot of sense.
Yeah. So everything just goes back to normal, and everybody is skiing, everybody's eating, there's mindless chatter. We almost get back to what the first book was, where these kids are just all talking and yapping, and it's just you just really want someone to die. And thankfully, someone almost dies. Kelly is nearly killed by this mysterious guy riding a snowmobile. He tries to kill her in a hit and run. And then the stuff that happens with this book, a lot of the stuff was in this author's book called Winter Kill, which I read and
Oh,
reviewed, and I did enjoy. So a lot of these things happened. Things happening on the ski slopes, hit and run on the ski slopes. Somebody gets killed. There's like a mysterious murderer on the loose, or whatever you want to call it. So it's very similar. I think Winter Kill was before this book, but she borrows some of the same things from Winter Kill in this book.
mm,
Um, and then we get the big surprise on who the police officer is that's guarding Kelly, and we find out that it's actually Troy.
yeah,
Troy, who she thought was a high school kid, is actually 22.
yeah,
He's on his first real case. They're using him in the investigation because he looks like a high school kid.
yeah.
And and the reason why he's involved is the police are trying to crack down on drug dealing that's happening in the school. They had a lead about something happening on this ski trip, I guess, and some of the skiers are buying drugs, and they didn't want to bust the skiers that are using the drugs because they want to go after the drug dealers, which makes sense.
Right.
And I don't know. So Troy, he's the undercover police officer. He's there for a reason, but he's already let Paula die. Like,
Yeah,
he
I didn't think about that, but that's true.
He didn't prevent anything from happening.
He's not doing a good job.
No, he doesn't. So Kelly and Troy start naming people that might be involved in the reasons they may or may not be dealing drugs. Jeff continues to see Kelly and Troy together. It's making him angry and jealous. And then finally, we get back to the end of the book, which it's very similar to the last book, where Kelly wakes up in the middle of the night. It's like 1 a.m. and she sees Frank outside. He's the one in the wheelchair rolling around, and he's searching for something. So Kelly walks outside, goes up to him and asks, what he's doing, and he's holding a package of handguns. It's like a sealed bag of guns. And Will then walks up, and then we realize that Will is dealing guns. And Frank was outside trying to determine what was being hidden out there by Will. He had seen Will poking around out there earlier in the day, and he thought something was fishy going on. And it turns out that Will was putting these bagged guns inside of the little barrier around the cabins. It was like a little wooden barrier. You can lift it up, put stuff inside, sand or whatever, sticks it in there. Will then tells Frank and Kelly that he's going to kill him. And then Troy and Jeff save the day.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's it. At the end of the book, we learn that Kelly's father is now in a relationship with Margaret, the police officer.
That cracked me up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The police officer is her new mom. That's like the last page. You're like, do you want a new mom like this? And she's like, I think I do.
I think I want a police mommy.
Yeah.
Nathan may leave school and go to work somewhere, possibly at
On
the
the ski slopes.
On the ski slopes. Kelly is perfectly happy with Jeff, and that's the end of the book.
Yeah. Not great either, but I did at least enjoy. It was maybe worse technically, but I think I enjoyed it more.
Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with this book. It's not great by any means, but it's at least a crime fiction style book. And
the plot moved forward. It was, it was more cohesive.
It was. And I think the author made it clear there was no pretense here that this was a slasher when the person that we didn't know made the phone call and said, "Hey, I can't deal."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Now we're getting into like a crime fiction trope here. So there isn't a pretense here. This is going to be some kind of slasher or horror book.
Right.
Which, so I kind of like that aspect of it. I wish there were more deaths. I mean, technically we only had three people killed in two books.
Yeah.
So we got through roughly 300 pages with only 3 deaths. One of which we experienced on the second page of the first book. So
yeah,
not a lot of death, not a lot of action, not a lot of violence. But it is young adult, but still you can have a little some kind of gritty texture to it.
Yeah, I think both are just kind of they're okay. Maybe it was branded poorly to try to brand as horror and just is going to let people down with what it actually is. Like, I think you're right. I think if they had branded the second one as crime and maybe the first one is more of a mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my 3rd book by this author. Do you plan on reading any other books by her?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not opposed, but I'm not gonna put them on the top of my TBR.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'd be curious to read one of her. I think she has a couple of adult suspense novels, and I'm curious what they would be like.
Yeah, or if I find one of those Harlequin romances.
Harlequin romance. I mean, she's not a terrible writer. I mean, her prose is fine. I mean, she writes fine. It's just.
And you enjoyed Winterkill, and I have that one, so I'd check that one out.
Yeah, Winterkill was good. That was really good. I'd really like to get my hands on that Demon's Beach one because the cover is so cool. It seems a little bit different than the other ones. I don't know why. There's one that I think it's got like an exploding vehicle on it or something.
Sounds right. Yeah, I've heard good things about her in general. I think she's well liked as a writer, and which is why I picked these. And then shortly after I started looking at the reviews, and people were not saying good things, and they were kind of like, these are some pretty bad books from a great author. And so I was like, oops.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So if we do another one of these 90s young adult books, what do you think we should tackle? Should we tackle like a point horror one, or? Have
you ever read Christopher Pike?
I have not.
I've only read 2 or 3 of his young adult books, but they've been my favorite of any young adult stuff I've read. They're bizarre, and he definitely has more adult themes, like way more adult, like almost like, how do you get away with this in a teen book kind of thing. Like, I read one of them, and I literally just described it as a Richard Lehman book for teens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's like, it was about this teenager, like, creeping on people with a video camera in the girls' locker room. And then there gets into this whole, like, he's, I would like to read, I really want to read more of his stuff. He's very well liked and respected. So I hopefully wouldn't pick a bad one. But
he's a real guy, right?
He is. And he wrote a couple adult books as well, I think.
Yeah. Is he the one that wrote the book that I Know What You Did Last Summer was based on?
No, that's Lois Duncan.
Oh, Lois Duncan. That's right. Okay. Yeah. That's another one I want to try.
I read I Know What You Did Last Summer years ago, and I remember thinking it was okay. And then I read another one of hers that was more of a ghost story type thing, and it was decent. It was pretty good.
Is there any supernatural aspects to any of those books?
So I haven't read enough to say. I haven't got to one yet, but I've heard that there are some of the Fear Street books that have supernatural aspects, but I can't tell you which ones off the top of my head. But
have you ever watched the Fear Street movies on Netflix?
I watched the first one because there was the trilogy of like 90s, 80s, 70s or something.
I think so. Yeah.
I watched the first one. I thought it was pretty good.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't watch all of them.
I just my daughter and I went and saw the most recent I Know What You Did Last Summer, the reboot.
Yeah.
Of that movie, the slasher movie, and it wasn't good.
No, yeah, I saw the trailer for it and I was like, well, the first one's already pretty decent. This looks the same. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know why they decided that they wanted to do that, but it was not good. It was really bad. I've got a lot of patience with slasher movies, but that was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Any final thoughts on the book before we go?
I had fun reading it and talking about it with you, but not my favorite.
Right. Cool. Anything exciting coming up on your channel anytime soon? What do you got going on?
I've been bad about posting for the past couple of weeks, so I'm going to start cranking out some videos here soon now that things have slowed down. Probably do a monthly wrap up. I have a little bit of a book haul coming. Let's see, I'm currently reading this one.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Doing a buddy read with the Bookubus. Yeah, I don't know, just some random stuff.
Nice, cool. Well, speaking of young adult, well, I'm thinking of it. I just read this young adult book. It's
Okay.
the Shoppe of Endarkenment,
Uh-huh.
and it's a young adult book, and it's horror, and it's about this. It's like this shopkeeper moves into town with his little shop of like the little trinkets and treasures and things. It's like an antique shop, but you realize that the the storekeeper, he's really weird and he's supernatural.
Hmm.
And so when kids go in to buy things, he'll tell them like for they're broken up into the episodes. So this one has 6 episodes, and each episode is a kid buying something from the shop. So the first episode, this kid wants to buy this little, it's one of those little things that you put in water and it grows.
Yeah.
So he buys like this little man, and the shopkeeper tells him, he says, "Hey, if you keep this in water more than 6 hours, look out." And the
Well, that's
kid's like,
fun little,
"Well,"
yeah.
the kid's like, "I'll never do that." And the kid goes into the basement bathroom and he drops it in there and it doesn't do anything. He's just watching and watching and watching and it doesn't do anything. So he goes upstairs, turns on a movie or something, falls asleep, and then he hears the guy who's now a man walking up the stairs saying like, "Why did you leave me?" And but every, I guess kind of a spoiler, but every kid in here that buys something ends up getting murdered. Gets killed
Okay.
gets
Wow.
killed by the thing that they yeah, so it's pretty
That
good.
sounds pretty good.
At the end, there's a pastor that enters the shop at the end, and you realize that the pastor's his family had been killed by something that was bought at this guy's store.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like a God versus the devil thing at the end.
Hmm.
So but I'm gonna do an interview with the author
Nice.
about the book, and try to dig. But oddly enough, I found out about this book because this guy's my neighbor.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was going to say, how'd you find out about that? Like
Yeah,
your next door neighbor, huh?
yeah, he's my.
Or,
I didn't even know who he was. Yeah, he lives diagonal to me, and I ended up doing like some charity stuff for this little low income property up in Jacksonville, Florida, and he donated a box of food, and I went over to pick it up and I ended up having a conversation with him, and he was telling me that he's wrote a couple books, and he wrote this one, and then he wrote another young adult book that's kind of a dystopian book called Escape from Gehenna,
Mhm.
and he's writing the sequel now, and he wrote a couple short stories, and he's been on several podcasts and stuff talking about his books, but he also has a YouTube series of little horror stories. They're like little snippets, like each episode's like 6 or 7 minutes.
That's
But
cool.
they're pretty good too. So I can't wait to
And
talk to him about
he had no idea he lived across from a celebrity.
it. Right? Yeah, some celebrity. Yeah, but yeah, he
And
was
then,
happy.
yeah, I guess while we're shouting things out, this, I don't know if you saw my interview with this author. Bumps in the Night is like a current series of middle grade horror books that are kind of a throwback to Goosebumps. But
Oh,
I think
okay.
they're fantastic. I think they're like maybe even better than the original stuff. So another
Oh,
thing to
wow.
check out if, and they're very, very dark too, like that. So it's
Ah,
good.
okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another author that I really want to read is or to read the Goosebumps books.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a couple that you had mentioned. I think that one that you mentioned with the camp, something about the camp.
Camp Jelly Jam. That's one of my favorites so far. I think that's a
Yeah.
good one to start with if you haven't cracked into any, because unfortunately, a lot of them are kind of boring, kind of lame, honestly, reading them as an adult. But
Yeah.
there are the occasional ones that I'm like, okay, he got that right. That's fun.
Yeah, I want to
Um,
try that one for sure.
yeah.
This author that we were just talking about, he took oh geez, what can R.L. Stein's he took R.L. Stein's master class
Okay. Yeah.
when he was learning to write, and so I could see Goosebumps in this book, I guess, just
Well, that's cool.
from a little bit I read about Goosebumps anyway. So
Yeah.
all right, man. Well, we could chat all day, but I'm gonna let us go here. It's been an hour, so
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks
all
for
right, man.
having me
Well,
on.
yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. You can look for this video along with hundreds of other videos here on my channel at paperbackwarrior.com has links to everything. Again, this is Bryan, Bad Taste Books. Check out all his videos, and we will chat at you later.
Have a good one.